welcome back to the Comic Talker podcast, where comics are always the top of our discussion. My name is Brandon.
I'm Mary.
I'm Bryce.
It's
He's
connected.
gone mute.
Yeah, we hear you now.
It's not. Oh, yay. Okay, cool. Well then.
That's Erica.
Hi.
We're going to
I'm
keep that
always
in the
having
pop.
technical
Yes.
issues.
So today, what we're going to be doing is, unfortunately, we are ending our Transformers month. But on a fun note, we actually want to pitch to new readers or anybody who dabbled into the cartoon shows but never wanted to dabble into the comics, why people should give Transformers comics a chance. Now, Erica, she is our Transformers expert. So she, I think Mary and I can speak a lot from experience there too, because she introduced us to the comic book world of Transformers. And we literally went who, what, when, where, why. Because it was like, okay, there's a lot more here than we ever expected. I think my description was it was like me reading a Kevin Smith comic, but if it was with robots. Bryce,
And I normally like Kevin Smith, but I like that style. But I did send Erica like 20 questions in a row within the span of like a minute at like 11 p.m. And she answered all of them very patiently, and I love her for it.
See, I have a love-hate relationship with Kevin Smith comics, but I think the difference between me and Mary is Kevin Smith wrote each of our favorite big two characters.
Yep.
Did one really well and did one kind of mediocre.
I mean, I do also like his. I think his Daredevil is funny. I will not say his Daredevil is good, but I will say it's funny and it's enjoyable.
Well, side note there, you know what? Frankly, him putting Mysterio as a villain to Daredevil, I thought was pretty interesting. But today, our goal is going to pitch to you why you guys should at least give Transformers comics a chance. So I'm going to turn it over to Erica to kind of start us off a little bit. What was your history with going into Transformers comics? And not only that, how would you sell it to somebody why they should read a Transformers comic?
Totally. So my history with Transformers up before the comics was really mostly encounters with like the live action Michael Bay movies. The first one of which I felt okay towards, all the others of which I despised. Um, and acknowledged that the cartoons existed, but I had never really felt a desire to engage with them. By the time that I got introduced to the comics by my at the time roommate, but now partner of like 2 years, I had undergone some changes in my media taste. I'd gotten definitely more into sci-fi, more into action series, a lot more into anime and like big robot shows like Gundam or like Voltron. And so I was a little more primed for it. But really what got me excited to read them was listening to my partner just info dump about the weird stuff that happened in it. Because when you hear Transformers, you kind of just expect it to be big robots wailing on each other and dealing with war. And while war can be like a really interesting topic for most people or for a lot of people, or just the promise of big robot action can also be very enticing. It's definitely enticing for me now. Um, Learning that it was a way more complicated story, that the comics were way more focused on interpersonal relationships, that some of them just go into such bizarre directions that even though it is planned from the beginning and set up from the very beginning, there is no way you could ever expect them to go into the directions that they do, whether it be dealing with time travel or alternative universes or severe medical malpractice, or whatever it is that week. The possibility of just seeing like these kinds of off the wall stories that were still like politically engaging, that were still really intelligent, that were really funny, but also like incredibly heartfelt, like they make me cry my eyes out nonstop. That is what really drew me into Transformers, to the point where even though my partner had basically spoiled everything that happened in like More Than Meets the Eye and then some of the other IDW series, I still was completely willing to go in, buy all the comics, read all of them, and still be constantly surprised, shocked, and just in love with the story. Um, So that was my big entry to it. And when it comes to like getting people into it, uh, it's so hard. Mary has experienced the fact that my primary way of sharing my love for something is to info dump about it nonstop.
Mine too, so it works.
Help that. Yeah,
It
same.
does. Yeah. Which like tried and true like tactic, and I guess that is what a podcast is. Um yeah, the
Yeah.
nods, the
Yeah.
smiles.
Like there's a couple books I'm trying to get my girlfriend into, and I warned her. It's like I think it was I told her I was priming her for Vinland Saga, where I'm like, we are going to discuss every page of this in detail.
Yeah.
Me forcing Cody to read Basilisk.
Yes.
Yes.
See?
Yeah, pretty much. Absolutely.
If just hearing people like
Poor
love
souls.
on a franchise for like 4 hours isn't enough to get you to go and like read it, I really highly encourage you to grab like either the beginning of like IDW 2005 or the beginning of phase 2 of IDW, which is More Than Meets the Eye, RID, or pick up with the new Image comic series. This is genuinely a really great opportunity to start exploring the comics since we are at the beginning of a new universe. So like there is no need to read footnotes or look at the wiki to figure out what's going on. You get in with issue 1 and you are caught up with what's going on. I really kind of suggest just grabbing one of those entry points with a friend and seeing just where the comics take you. Because having people to talk about it with is makes the experience so much better.
Now, let's talk about something, because I know a lot of people's entries are either going to be in just not just us, but in the world. Most of them are going to go to the animated series. There are people are going to be the movies. I know, Bryce and I have kind of probably had that experience too. And I know, Mary, you said the same thing too, that we all kind of got in through the Michael Bay films. Yep. And I know some people love the movies, some people cannot like the movies. I have a
I
love.
don't mind them. They introduced me to Linkin Park, which I can appreciate.
What's your favorite song with Linkin Park from those movies? Come on now. At this point,
Obviously, What I've Done.
Yeah, What I've Done is
obviously.
I like
it's one of the better Linkin Park songs overall.
Pick, but it's the best pick.
Yeah, it's one of those songs, like, it's good. It's New Divide is a good song as well.
Yeah.
And one of their more popular songs as well, but in reality, What I've Done is just amazing, and it's becoming
in the end is still my favorite song by them. I know that's probably the most basic pick, but I really do not care. I
also like Hit the Floor.
Yeah.
Hit the Floor and Numb, and Breaking the Habit is another good one of theirs.
Numb straight up got me through middle school.
Oh my god.
Can't express. I was on a 8+ hour road trip to and then from North Carolina, and my playlist for driving was just 2000s pop punk or like punk rock, and I cannot express how important Numb was to me getting over being a child of divorce. So good for angry 12-year-olds.
Oh
really
yeah,
true.
I think on my end it was the guy got me through the bullying phase. So that was fun. Them and Nickelback.
Look at this photograph.
Nah.
So there was a karaoke
me.
club at my middle school, and there was one kid consistently every single week who picked "Photograph" by Nickelback as his song.
Incredible.
And I hope he's doing better now.
Yeah. So long story short, the Transformers remind us of 2000s like
where are the Transformers comics AMVs to Linkin Park? Where are they?
Exist.
They most definitely exist. They have to.
Actually, the actual way to get into Transformers and why you should read the comics is that if you are into Linkin Park, 3 Days Grace, or Green Day, there is a space for you in these comics. They were made for you.
It's
Show me the AMV to 21 Guns. I need it.
I will.
Please tell me there is an edit of Sam Witwicky to American Idiot.
Oh my God.
There's gotta be.
If there's
There has
not,
to be.
I'm gonna be so mad. There has to be.
Group chat's gonna be wild after this, I can tell.
It will be.
We're gonna be sending us AMVs all over the place. But
I've
so
been on that side of the internet for a while now. I've never made one, but I've been on that side of the internet for a while.
I mean, y'all know I make comic edits.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. A lot.
That's what I said. So
I have the brain rot. Yeah.
So with us with the movies, it's a good. I hate to say it this way, for new people who get into it, that I think that's kind of like the way everybody got into it, one way or another, is the movies.
Oh yeah.
Now
that is still my Optimus Prime.
Yeah, Peter Cohen is always gonna be Optimus Prime. You can never have a show and not think.
Oh my gosh.
But going back to the movies, I don't. It gets a lot of crap because of the depiction of some of the Transformers or some of the Autobots and the Decepticons. But I think it's a good way for people to get into it, to know the characters. But if they really want to explore the lore more, that's where you go to comics. Comics is going to explore that lore more and more detail. I say the same thing with Star Wars. Like, yeah, movies and shows are one thing. You want to get into that lore, you have to read comics. Like, Darth Vader is a good example of that. Like, when you look at Darth Vader comics, they actually tell you what happens after he becomes Darth Vader. They actually have the scenes where you have to see the crystal bleed that turn it red. You see that lore. And I think with Transformers, and especially with the runs that we read with Erica back in November, it shows there's more to just a war. There is ideals. There is the way people perceive things. You know, there are different idealistics throughout the whole comic that make you question if they're really heroes or villains, or if that even really is even a conversation with the Autobots and Decepticons at that point. And I've really enjoyed reading them because at that point it makes you question that a lot more. And I thank Erica for getting us into it, because at that point it really does make us question a lot more in detail, and make us, especially how Mary, myself, and Bryce are, where, okay, now we're enthralled. Let us get into this a little bit more. Let's see where this goes.
So part of Erica knows me too well. Erica and I have known each other for 6 or 7 years now.
Oh man, lore drop.
It's
we met
7. It'll be 7 in August.
And Erica was around when I was writing my senior thesis in college, which dealt with a lot of medical malpractice. Because I focus on history of medicine. And so Erica, first of all, was very excited to talk to me because Erica knew I'm into comics. And so Erica was like, my partner got me into comics. And started talking about Transformers. And I think about halfway through your rant, you realized you were approaching it the wrong way with me. And then you said, and don't worry, there's medical malpractice too. And I was so confused about how there could be medical malpractice with robots that I think I just blue screened. And I didn't catch the next 20 minutes of what you said. And then I tuned back in to you talking about post-human potential and gender expression and all sorts of things. And I was like, okay, this could be fun. This could be really, really cool. And then I meant to read it, and then I got very, very busy with work, because working in a school is exhausting. And also all of the comics reading I was doing at that point was for our 52 book club and all sorts of things that we were doing here on the podcast. And so I was it's super crazy. And then I read the 2 comics we did for the last time we did Transformers in November. And that was the first time I ever actually picked up a Transformers comic. And I was so excited because Pharma was there and I love him. Not in a weird way. I want to study him like a bug.
Does that qualify as a weird way, Mary?
Concerning.
No, that's normal. For me at least. We'll put it that way.
I don't know how to feel about that.
But I feel like the way that Erica got me into Transformers is not the way that you should get most people in Transformers, because I don't think that most people would be super enthralled by the concept of medical malpractice with robots. I'm not sure that would be a big selling point. But I do think that the concept of like personhood, and the compelling narratives around personhood and around the concept of morality and the damaging nature of war to the concept of the self that Transformers posits is really, really compelling. And that's kind of one of those things, like that's one of the reasons people love MASH, right? Is that it's a war story that focuses on the perception of the self told by the people who experience war. And that's like one of the best parts of that kind of war narrative, because it's, in many ways, it is a battle narrative, but it is also very much a social story of war, especially when you get to the narratives about rebuilding. And that's what I really love about Transformers, and that's what I think more people would be into it if they knew that it was more than just the battles.
It is a good point to bring up because of that reason, and I feel like that's why comics really did a really good job that I think shows really wouldn't be able to. You know, Bryce brought up that war does sell, and it is a true point. War does sell. When there's conflict between any character in a comic, we're always going to tend to be enthralled with it. But I feel like the comics also get away with a lot more than what a show can do. And people, like, I'm sorry, they can cut a robot straight up down the middle with pharma, straight up, and then fix them. It's like, okay. And what was it? Didn't he have Ratchet's head literally just looking at the whole thing the whole time?
Yeah, you removed Ratchet's head and Spark and had it sitting basically in a little box just so it could watch it with his body across the room transformed.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
It's great.
It's so awesome. See, that's the thing. Okay, well, the cartoons are really, really fantastic. If the 80s cartoon is a lot of fun, if you just want mindless, funny nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, best
my favorite thing about
ever.
It.
I know, it's so good. And what I actually really like is reading the comics in addition to like the 80s cartoon, is that you can see that the comic writers are such big fans of that original series. Like, it very clearly shaped who they were, because they will go back to it constantly and pull like ideas from it, or just like one-off really cool lines that never get brought up again, and then turn them into like entire character beats. Like, even like when it comes to Starscream, there is like this one scene, and it's like episode 4 or 5 of the original cartoon, where Starscream is of course trying to usurp Megatron. That's what he does. And Megatron makes a comment to him that like, having power might sound nice, but it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And once you're in power, everybody wants your head, basically. And like, that's like an 80s cartoon for kids. It's not, it doesn't get explored, but that becomes the entire like guiding conflict for RID, and kind of like the main theme that happens in this really wonderful like introspective like character exploration for Starscream that you get in like the comic series from IDW. But also, if you're just a really big fan of gore and horror, man, are the comics really good. They are horrific in what they get away with.
Well, one thing that has interested me since I've started getting more into it is the fact that it doesn't shy away from those topics and doesn't talk down to its target demographic. Like, I'll be honest, my favorite piece of war-based media is another kids show, and it's Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of similarities in the themes and the way that those themes are handled so far between Transformers and Avatar. The only thing I've not seen in Transformers yet that I did see in Avatar was the extra focus on people not directly involved in the war and how the war is affecting them. So I don't know if that's in Transformers or not. Maybe you can kind of let me know if it is, but
yeah, the IDW series definitely gets into that. I can see the Warren Johnson run starting to get towards it, with its focus on like Earthling civilians and like these humans trying to figure out how to live their lives now that war has come to them. But the IDW series has a huge focus on both Cybertronians who choose not to be part of this war. So they go into diaspora and try to live elsewhere, as well as basically the effects of like the fact that the Cybertronians are colonial, in that there is like a Cybertronian empire that chooses to start expanding its reach for resources, and in the fact that the Decepticons and Autobots have just kept moving their war from planet to planet and destroying those like civilizations in their wake throughout this like huge civil war. So no, it is kind of similar to Avatar. It is really interested in questions of colonialism, of empire, and of like the ethics of how you solve conflict and bridge boundaries. I even see those questions that like Aang deals with being a pacifist, and how he like reconciles that with his role as the Avatar, coming through a lot in the Johnson run so far, especially with the character of Cliff, and Carly and RC.
Now, let me ask you this. I kind of got it back a little bit. Now, we know that it's not just IDW, and now Image has it. Marvel's had a run on it. Marvel had it. I believe they were one of the first ones to have the comic book runs.
I think they were the first.
Yeah, because it was them, and then what was it? Britain had that, because that's where we get the Wreckers and stuff like that. And then Japan had their own thing too. Now, something you brought up in the last episode too was the marketing for this. Now, the marketing for this was toys. The toys is what it's kind of like how Ninja Turtles were too. They did the toys. Well, they had the comic, and then it went to toys, and then went to that. Transformers was straight up toys, and then made a show off it, just kind of like G.I. Joe was. Now, do you see, I was going to ask, do you see a lot of differences from what IDW does to something like Marvel? Because Marvel was a pretty prominent company, or it still is a prominent company, never rephrase. But were they the right people to start off the comic book world?
I mean, they started their comic run in 84. So I think it makes a lot of sense for where the show was at the time. Like, honestly, it makes sense to me to start it off with Marvel or DC, both of whom are major publishers and were still major publishers at the time, with series that could interest both like mostly like the demographic of like tween and early teen boys.
And the only reason I question it too is because you had like Mirage starting up during that time, which was the publisher with the Ninja Turtles. You had Dynamite Entertainment, which was pretty prominent, or not prominent compared to Marvel and DC, but they were up there.
Dark Horse was started in like 85.
Yep, Dark Horse wasn't too far after. And then because Image didn't come till 92.
Yeah.
But that's why I was curious, like, to see if Marvel, like, now let me ask Erica this: have you went and read a lot of the Marvel runs of the Transformers, and how do they compare to nowadays, like with IDW and things like that?
I say I haven't read a lot of them. I've skimmed the ones that I find in like comic book bins, but I haven't purchased or like read them in full.
Okay.
Big fan.
I am a fake fan.
It's interesting to see, because I kind of, like I said, with researching for this month and everything, having that, it was one of those things like, okay, let's kind of see where Marvel goes with this, because I was kind of curious, but then you see it went straight to independent publishers shortly after, because it was, and I do feel like IDW still was the best thing that Transformers could even ask for. But that's why I was kind of curious to see too. Now, let me ask this question. We know Bryce's choices with some of his favorite Autobots and Decepticons and all that. What are Transformers that you feel, or either Autobots or Decepticons that you guys feel got a better character development through comics compared to maybe something like you get with the show? That was my original question. I was trying to figure out. I'd work to it. But like, what would you say is some of the characters that you feel like okay, you're not prominent in movies, but you're really prominent in the comics?
Oh. Yeah, that's a good question. It definitely, like, I'll say it also depends on which show you watch, because I mean the 80s show is like a weekly, like, kind of, there is an ongoing story, but it's fun. Let's explode big like robots and stuff. And some of them are dinosaurs. When it comes to like the movie versus the comics, oh, that's really hard. I will say, if you're a big fan of Bumblebee in the movies, he's not like that at all in any of the comics that I've read. He is a completely different character.
Well,
But
shoot.
Well,
I know
and
he's
we don't
not.
get him in Daniel Warren Johnson's run because we know he's just killed, and we already know
Yeah,
the response to that. They doesn't want.
yeah. But it's like in the movies, he's like this like silly, like kind of immature, almost like teenage-ish robot. And he's like a joy, genuinely. He is like one of the bits of like the live action movies that I really adore. And then of course, like the Bumblebee movie itself is like honestly kind of like a reboot in the quality of the live action movie. It's like that itself, it's a horse girl movie with a car. Like it's amazing. I love it. In
It's
the
Kirby with
comics,
mecha suits.
exactly. In the comics, he is a way more mature and introspective character, and I find, and specifically in the IDW series, he's also disabled. And so, if that is something that really interests you to see this character who is like trying to carry on and kind of make the legacy of Optimus Prime his own, slash figure out what it means to be a leader while also dealing with the fact that he is like a disabled and kind of like marginalized character in a lot of it. Really fantastic. I think if you want a more nuanced Starscream, you want something more than like our funny little guy or a pure sociopath. He also like gets a lot of development in the comic series in both wartime and in like peace times. There is a lot of growth specifically for him in the IDW comics, and he is a pretty beloved character in like the fandom because of that. But also like if you are hungry, there's so many characters. I think that like honestly in the IDW comics, they've all been developed in such wonderful ways. In the Johnson run so far, I'm really excited to see how RC specifically is developing, because she can either be kind of a wet tissue character or like a standard girl boss character. But here it seems that she is like sort of like a healed warrior. And I find that to be such a curious like characterization for her. It makes her a little bit older in that way. It makes her like a mentor. And we were kind of talking about like her role as one of the OG like femme transformers, and like her relationship in the comics to the newer femme bots like Windblade, and Chromia is also a G1 technically, but like Windblade specifically in like the IDW series. I find it really, really interesting to then kind of take that like generational age of the character and translate it into part of like who she is in the comics. So I think if you want to see varied takes on RC, see how she gets reinterpreted over time and in her role as like one of the few femme transformers, the comics are wonderful places to see a lot of different takes, a lot of which do not jive with each other, but all of which are really interesting.
Okay. Before I'll kind of say something too. There's something I love about the comics more, and we've talked about when we did our drafts, and Mary and I really prominently chose that there are subdivisions. There are teams throughout these comics that you see. So you have the Wreckers, you have the Pretenders, you have all these what was it? You even have the construction bots that we see in Daniel Warren Johnson's run. That you see them make this big old mechanized, no, was it robot? But that's why I said it's so interesting to see some of these other divisions that it's not just Optimus Prime, it's not just Bumblebee, it's not just Megatron or Starscream. You have all these subdivisions too that makes so like I think I even talked about when I chose Hound for Autobots is to see that in seeing that some of these robots are just bred for war. That's all they're known for. And so have those moments where they have to work as a team and you see more of that. I think that's why I like it too, is that it's not just so much the comics, and we've talked about when the more than meets the eye and things like that, is it's not just focused on the main robots. It's mainly focused on all the characters on the sidelines. Like Ratchet's one of
That's another thing. So, like if you watch the shows or the movies, you're really going to get the Autobot story, right? Because they're the good guys. Because when you make a show or a movie, you're really a lot of times you're not doing the whole morally gray thing. Especially because the shows are geared towards children. And so they're trying to do good guy, bad guy. So you get a whole lot more Decepticon lore in the comics. And I think Decepticons are more interesting, which is why I was actually prepared for the Decepticon draft and not the Autobot draft. Just because I think there's a lot of really interesting dynamics at play. With the Decepticons. Also, the Pretenders are just my little scrungly guys, and I think they're neat. But I feel like you get more depth on the Decepticons in the comics, and so you can better understand why they are at war and what forces are acting on them to bring them into the conflict, and like why they are on that side, and why they make the choices that they do, which you don't really get in things like the Michael Bay movies.
Also, it doesn't help that they're called the Decepticons.
It does not help that they're called the Decepticons. You have Optimus Prime and the Autobots, and then it's the worst names you have ever heard for robots in your life and Starscream.
Now, hang on. Megatron's kind of cool.
How dare you say that about laser?
I thought it was Gigatron for you, man. I thought you liked Gigatron more than Megatron.
Well, okay. I like Gigatron during Mardi Gras, all right? It's the second time I've made that joke in this month, but it fits. It fits him so well.
But no, that's why I said the comics were so interesting because I think, when Erica pitched the comics we did back in November, I think I even mentioned like you only see Optimus and Bumblebee in like one scene. And the rest of it, like Ratchet's one of the only main ones that you see throughout that whole comic. And then Windblade, the main one you see is Starscream. So you don't have those, but they play. It's kind of like one of those things that Disney really should follow for Star Wars and make their own stories, but have characters every so often that we know and love be prominent. Like I think a good example is Ahsoka, even though I don't agree with everything in that show. I do agree with most parts. But you had like a small little scene with C-3PO, and they reference Princess Organa. So it's that, or General Organa. So that means more to me in having those, but you can develop newer characters now with that. And I think that's what's so great about Transformers is that you have these characters like, yeah, they're prominent, but they're not the main characters. They are side characters to new characters that we want to get to know. IDW, I think, has done a really good job with that. Daniel Warren Johnson's run, we haven't seen that yet. So
yeah, it is something where with the Daniel Warren Johnson like series right now, it is all big name Gen 1 characters. Interestingly, Jazz instead of Prowl, like that stood out to me as like a curious bit. But something that's nice about the other comics is that, well, first of all, you don't even just have to follow the main line. You can go into something like Beast Wars and read those specific comics. They have their own story that's being told. It is a cast of characters that have made appearances in film and on TV. There's the really old Beast Wars animated series. The animation it's rough. It's really rough. It's like really early 3D CGI animation, but it's a really good story if you can get past it. And then there's the newest live action movie that just came out last year, I think. I think it's 2023, which is a Beast Wars movie. But there is like that series which allows you to get fully away from the main cast of characters and just explore those stories. There's also like the side stories and collections that are just focused on like specific groups like the Wreckers. They have their own like mini series basically with like an alternating cast. But also the comics managed to do something that like the show wanted to do, and in doing so traumatized a bunch of children, which is which is defocus the story from like the original cast so that way they could tell a new story. Like if you're aware of like Transformers the movie, it is really kind of infamous for killing all of the main characters in like the first 30 minutes of it and then being like, here's Rodimus, aren't you so happy to follow him? Or I'm sorry, Hot Rod, but at the time, Hot Rod, anyways. It's like, here's Hot Rod. Aren't you so excited to follow him and see what he's doing? Meanwhile, you have all these children who are crying because I just watched Optimus Prime actually get ganked on screen. And it is extraordinarily traumatic. The comic series managed to like move us away from that original cast of characters and have them basically bow out so you can focus on more side characters and explore like different dynamics and different perspectives on like the world that they live in. Even thinking about something like More Than Meets the Eye, you would think on page that the main character is going to be Hot Rod slash Rodimus because he's stepping into the leader role in it. He's definitely there. He's definitely like a prime character, but you'll go issues without him being the center of the story because it bounces from different kind of groups within like the Lost Light crew, but it also bounces over to a group of like Decepticons who like abandoned the war and are oh, what is the word, Mary? When you just leave, desert. They're a bunch of deserters.
Okay. I was gonna say the Irish
See,
goodbye.
I just finished before we started
Yeah.
recording stuff today. I was doing homework, and so my brain went to the education term of elope, and I was like, "Wait, no, that could mean marriage in a different context."
I mean, they kind of have the vibe at times. Like it definitely varies between a bunch of weird roommates who are like on the run together and like maybe kind of holding hands, depending on the fan interpretation. But it's like it bounces between the Lost Light crew, which is super diverse in who it's looking at. It bounces over to this group of Decepticon deserters who are on the run from like Decepticon enforcers who are still chasing them down even though the war is over. And you get jumps over to like genuinely some of the most like evil characters that I can think of. Like you basically have a character who designs and runs concentration camps for the Decepticons during the war, and he is a primary character in that series and a primary perspective character. And it is very focused on stressing the point that even if you like him, even if you think he's interesting, he is still genuinely a worse guy than even Megatron, who is dealing with his own like trauma in that series and coming to terms with the fact that in the name of what he thought was a righteous movement, he has murdered billions of people. So it's one of those series that like through just the nature of comics and spin-offs and ensemble casts, it really does actually let you get away from like the main characters and start exploring like the consequences of these stories from different perspectives, from people who are hurt by those conflicts, people who are complicit in them, or even people who are indifferent to them and really don't want to be part of this. And that's just something that comics do really, really well in general, and the Transformers comics are really spectacular at.
Now, we do have to ask the final question to kind of lead us out of this conversation. Is there an Autobot or a Decepticon, and either or, that you guys cannot stand? And Erica, I have to put one caveat on. You can't put Wheelie on there because that's too easy. I think all of us would have Wheelie on our list one way or another. But are there Decepticons or Autobots that you guys go, I don't care if I see them again, and I hope they don't bring them into comics anymore? What would be your guys' picks?
I can't think of one, like off the top of my head.
Drunkatron.
No, he's a primary character.
I'm gonna say not Carnivac because that dude's a freaking poser.
How about not Connervac?
That's what I said.
Not Carnivac.
Not Connervac.
I'm I'm a hater. I'm a little hater. I have a list, but I think the most controversial one is that I despise Prowl. Period. I hate him. He's on page. I'm mad about it. Like, I hate that guy. I'd be so happy if I never had to deal with him again. But also, the other controversial take, even though Starscream gets a lot of character development and he becomes a different person, I hate that guy too. I hate him.
Now, I'm shocked though, because we've talked about in Windblade how he's become more of an interesting character that way. Especially how he is with Windblade. Like, you're still like a certain, even though they might not like everything they do, they still have a respect for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of shocked you said Starscream.
Erica, don't worry about that, because I know, even though I'm very new to Transformers, there are definitely other pieces of media where I'm like, I recognize that you're an extremely well written character. Get out of my sight.
Leave.
It's me with Barbara Gordon.
Me with
Leave Babs out of this.
Me with
I don't like her.
I know you don't.
Never have.
It's Flock from Attack on Titan for me. That's the one where I'm like, you're
yes, I agree with you there. Flock is terrible.
You're so right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then Starscream, I'm kind of with you, Erica, because I both love and hate Starscream. Like, I love Starscream's, I love his story, but I hate him.
Yes.
And I'm like, you're annoying, but
that's the purpose of him.
But okay, I know, but first of all, I would be so
find
curious.
a different purpose.
I would be so curious to see. I don't think you could do a Transformers without Starscream, but I'm so curious as to what it would look like. My issue with Starscream is that he works best when people are rubbing up against him wrong. And with at least IDW Phase 2, everybody, like, he just gets free reign until Windblade. Anybody who's in his way disappears, gets assassinated, dies in battle, and he just keeps winning, and it infuriates me. But what makes me more infuriated is that while his plot is really, really interesting, and I could not stop reading RID despite complaining about it nonstop because of my feelings towards Starscream, and the fact that I could tell he was very much Jay Barber's favorite character. Some writers just have a character that they really love, and they just spend all of their time with them, even though there's other stuff going on or it doesn't make a lot of sense. RID is basically the first quarter of it is basically a presidential campaign between Starscream, Bumblebee, and Metalhawk, who is an independent diasporic character. This is coming right after Starscream basically just led the Cybertronian equivalent to the Donner Party. He took his own band of Decepticons, got them stuck on another planet, and they ran out of fuel and had to start eating each other. Why is he a legitimate presidential candidate?
Now, the question I have, though, too, is because in Daniel Warren Johnson's run, isn't Starscream already trying to do that a little bit? Because he did that with, what's his face?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. They make it seem like they're cannibalizing him, but they've it's not totally clear what they did, but they've stolen his parts and used them to repair others. Yeah. So yeah, he already started the process of cannibalizing people while also only screaming about how he was going to kill all the squishy humans. This is why I get so frustrated with Starscream, because he can be such a compelling character, or he can be Starscream. And it's like a coin flip with what happens with him.
Yeah, that's what I said. Because I was like, didn't he already start doing that? Like, he was tearing them apart to make other, to get the other parts that are needed for the other Decepticon.
Yeah. I mean, different universes, but right. It's now imagine if in 40 issues from now, after he's cannibalized somebody and gotten usurped from power while getting disemboweled, if he was You should elect me for president, guys.
Yes.
What did I do so good? And then he was actually really good at it. Like, that's my issue.
It's like Oliver Queen.
It'd be like if General Sherman became president.
Hey. Well, it could be just like Oliver Queen becoming mayor too, for somebody who's totally anti-government, becoming a mayor in Judd Winnick's run.
Oh,
okay, but
I
Judd
was about
Winnick's an
to say,
idiot.
at what point is Oliver Queen a cannibal?
No,
I mean, so
that.
the Green Arrow fandom on Tumblr has a meme that we've made with actual cannibal Oliver Queen based on the fact that he was on that island for 3 years. It's based on the actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf video. And it's just a very poorly photoshopped image of Ollie's head onto Shia LaBeouf in the video.
I was about to say, with
Army
the
Hammer for
island
Oliver
story,
Queen confirmed.
if you gave me the reins on a new Green Arrow story, I would put him back on the island and he would be eating people by the end. That's just how this would go.
Oliver's greatest chili would actually mean something totally different at that point.
Okay, that's just straight out of a South Park episode.
That's what I was thinking. That's a South Park episode, which is also a Shakespeare play.
I love Mary's face there. That made me laugh so quick. Just went.
And then he can go watch another production of Cats afterwards, like nothing happened.
As long as his weird homoerotic rival also does not try to assassinate him, but Ollie thinks he is, so we can get that really uncomfortable stare down with the towel again, I'm game.
I'm sorry.
Wait, are you talking about Marlon?
Oh my god.
No. I'm talking about Eddie Fires.
Oh,
yeah,
my favorite little gremlin
Eddie
man.
Fires.
No,
okay,
because Merlin's implied to have groomed Ollie in the 2016 run. Ollie says it on page. It's disgusting and gross. That's also his dad's like old best friend.
So Mary, consider this. Have you seen the Jimmy Neutron episode where Jimmy and Cindy get stuck on an island together?
Yes.
What is happening?
So
I
say
no, I'm hearing the train of thought.
Your new, because you have been dying for new good Green Arrow content. I'm saying the best content you could get is Oliver Queen on the island with Eddie. They kind of fall in love a little bit, but Ollie eats him by the end.
You need to read the Alaska arc, but yeah.
You shouldn't have a comic pulled up in response to that deranged idea.
Bryce, you're literally...
I'll see if I can find the specific issue for you later, Erica.
Bryce is literally giving the face of 2099 once again.
Yeah, Bryce wants out of here.
But fans, thank you guys for listening. Let us know what you guys think about Transformers comics. If you agree with us, let us know how you got into Transformers. If it was the movies, the shows, the comics, let us know what you guys think. I want to thank Erica. We actually want to thank Erica once again for coming on the podcast and enjoying talking with you about all things Transformers. We want to thank you again. We want to thank everybody for listening. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for other great comic book and anime content. Also, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Comic Talkers. Without further ado, my name is Brandon.
I'm Mary.
I'm Bryce.
Erica.
And may comics always be the top of your discussion.